It's good.
All right, very good. So it is 5:45 p.m., July 16th, 2026. We're going to call our workshop session to order. First on the docket is receive a report and hold a discussion and receive input regarding the Corinth Community Park Master Plan. Mr. Campbell.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council and guests. Many of you know this is a project we've been working on for quite some time to come up with a good master plan for the community park. And so tonight, Carolyn Seward, who's standing over there, will open up this item and present this information. And I think we have some guests tonight that she's going to introduce as well.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Like Scott said, this is kind of the last review of the master plan for Corinth Community Park before it comes up for approval. We've spent the last year gathering community feedback, whether it's at special events with voting, online surveys, QR codes out in the park. We spent the whole last year kind of getting feedback, creating a preliminary master plan, getting more feedback on that preliminary master plan, and then coming to you with the final draft. So I'm happy to introduce Aaron Law and Philip Neely with Dunaway, who've kind of been guiding us through this process, and they'll take it over from here.
Thank you again, Philip Neely. We're both landscape architects, so we do this a lot. This is fun. We appreciate getting to be with you. Just as some groundwork, when we first were brought in, to me, I live up in the Denton area, have for years. I've admired the park for a long time. You've done a lot with this park. It's just been amazing. And so to be brought in and think about it with fresh, how do you continue to enhance it over time? What would you do to improve, whether it's the active sports or parking or access, what we call more passive trails, open space. So it's a plan it's big, but it fits what you've been and what you probably will continue to be. It just gets better and better. So it's really a signature space for your community and in this region. I was involved recently at White Rock Lake Park Master Plan Update, and that's at a scale of everybody in the Metroplex thinks they own White Rock Lake Park. So there's a lot of thinking about it. There's 100 years of history there. My point being, we wanted to be very respectful from the get-go. And so Aaron and the team have had a lot of fun. I get to have fun with them when they let me enjoy it. But so tonight, again, you've had some look-see at this, right? So tonight you'll see some refinements. Aaron will move through that, and then I just want to mention a few things at the beginning. Our process, and I want to thank Caroline and Melissa they've been great guiding us through this and letting us have some space, and then they'll say, let us look it over and think about it. So very, very much appreciate what you've done for us. Sometimes we just don't get the kind of feedback we need along the way, and y'all have been great, so I want to compliment them. The process allows us to go through understanding the park, letting some of our team members have fun, interacting with your community, and then we begin to move into testing concepts. Again, this is an existing park. It's pretty amazing. So we're testing concepts and looking at ideas and presenting those through a series of steps. And then as we get to the finalization, it's where you refine it and it becomes a vision. You're going to do it over time. I think that's the key thing. You're going to do it piece by piece, however that works out. And so there's a critical definition of those spaces or those phases, who knows, in the coming days. But if you have a plan, everything goes back to that. You're able to understand what anything you would do ties back to the bigger picture, new parking or grading or utilities, public access, meaning trails or connecting walkways. So all of that becomes a part of a final master plan. And so that's why it's great to have it for your community to see the vision, but for you as leaders to understand, how do you implement this? These can be, my famous word is, they get tricky. I've used that with the KVC because each phase has to be carefully crafted. Enough on that. These are the, I would say, guiding principles in a sense. This keeps our team, even at the early concept phase, it keeps us anchored in what are we really trying to do. And I think these 4 things capture it, and then Aaron will go into the specifics. Number 1, we understand the park's been a success. You're not trying to salvage this thing. You have a great investment, your community loves it, so therefore you're talking about continuing to sustain it and make it great and better as you go forward. Being very good with your investment, but you're carefully understanding that. So we've not just said, well, let's just take the north side and start over. No way. You don't do that with a park that's this successful. Short and long-term vision, meaning how would you think about a smaller phase relative to a bigger phase? How does that work out? So the plan allows you to think about it in pieces as you go forward. And the phasing needs to be thought about also relative to maybe other investments, such as engineering type solutions. Sometimes we get involved with a project and all of a sudden the engineering side might deal with a roadway or drainage or some other infrastructure item that we can think about together. So there's an economy of what you would do on the park side and or other infrastructure. I think early on, Melissa kept saying, we got drainage issues here and drainage issues here and drainage, because there's just a lot of runoff. And so we understand if you start grading things, well then how does that affect up or downstream? We get it. And then lastly, let me go back, sorry. The master plan also may allow you to have some partnerships, meaning some groups or some other partnerships or grants, other money that you can go get, because now you have a plan and you can get others. It's pretty amazing in my career to see what other communities have done to get a friends group or some other type of group that wants to help you invest in some sort of a piece or part of the park. So I want to emphasize that because that could really leverage your money with others, and that could be a key strategy here. So with that, I'll let Aaron have fun with it.
Appreciate that, Philip. All right. Just like I'm sure a lot of us have built a puzzle before, and a lot of times the first step is to open the box and you pour out the pieces and you go, whoa, that's a big puzzle. How does it get put together? So you pull out the map or you set up the lid and you look at the big picture, and that's what this is. This is the big picture to build it. So we're not trying to identify the phasing. We're not trying to identify what pieces go together. It's the big picture, and then from there we'll work with Caroline or Melissa or the city council on how that funding works together and the strategy to build the picture. First step, we got in front of the community. So we went to Boo Bash and we went to the Extreme Egg Hunt. I was out there dressed as a landscape architect, but I also had a mouse costume on one day. So it was fun to interact with the public and the kids and just the everyday users out there. It's more than just an athletic field or an athletic complex. You've got community events. You've got people just coming out there walking, and then the Dorba group. Wow, that natural space on the south side is amazing. So just really great features and camaraderie around this park, and the input we've received was just super beneficial. We also spent several hours out at the site. Different team members went out there on various occasions, looked at the north side of the park and looked at the south side of the park. And what we noticed, and we also heard in the community, it's very divided. From spatially, you've got the major road that runs through there, but you've also got some of the architectural elements that aren't matching or maybe missing. So some of the small identity signage that can be pieced in to bring this park cohesively together. And then paying tribute to what the true heart of the community park is, it's sports-based. Sports-based, we understand that. So documenting how these user groups are using it with softball, baseball, soccer, jogging. We're just looking at all those key user groups and making sure that whatever large-scale implementation graphic we show still holds true to the base use, which is sports. So we want to acknowledge those fields and the amount of fields we have. So as far as the master plan goes, we're looking at 4 key items: the roadway access and balance of parking, fields reorganization and enhancements, the park visitor experience and year-round recreational offerings, and overall efficiency for maintenance. So those were all things in a very high level categories that we heard from the public, from maintenance staff, that were key in any implementation of this site. So I want to kind of start off on the north side, and a few of these key program categories you'll hear me talk about on the south side as well, but we looked at pedestrian vehicular circulation, trails and connectivity, the diamond sports enhancements, whether they're the fields stay in place and you just upgrade the skin finish, or if you're actually relocating some of the fields, looking at the various destinations that you have on both sides of the park, support structures and park identity. So starting off with the circulation, one of the key items we heard was that overall pedestrian activity across the site is really competing with vehicular circulation. So you've got people walking through the parking lots to get from one space to the other. There's a lot of paving out there. So how do we combat that? So we looked at ways to implement a park road, a true park road, so you have quick vehicular access into the park and out to the park. You've got key access to all critical amenities on site, and then how do pedestrians use the site. So we've created this pedestrian corridor that you can essentially get on or be dropped off at the softball fields, walk all the way up the corridor to the baseball fields, and then hit the community green at the north side. So you've got a key separation between pedestrians and vehicular traffic, which is a great overall safety aspect of the design. And then the trail system, which is huge for this, looking at the various concrete and soft surface paths. We know that was a prime feature that these users are using out there. Every time I went, there were people walking those DG soft paths. So making sure that we don't get rid of those. If anything, we're adding more and enhancing it. So looking at the concrete paths and ways those soft surface trails come and meander in and out of the overall design and layout. And then the ball field amenities, you've got the fourplex on the north, the baseball fields, and the fourplex of the softball fields staying in the same place. We're just adding those two fields out on the northeast side, and then the upgrading some of the twoplex on the northwest and expanding the ball fields to that middle green space that's open, which creates a nice pedestrian corridor in that middle area. And then destinations. Community play lawn at the north. By relocating some of those fields, we were able to open up some of that green space and look at programming a bigger accessible playground, a little lawn that can be used for community events like your Easter egg hunt or your Boo Bash, however you want to program that space. The nature zone, I know that's a partnership with UNT, so looking at ways we can continue to operate that as a community garden and actually bring more knowledge about that space. A lot of the community didn't even know that even existed back there. They just thought it was maintenance access. So bringing awareness to what this park has is critical. And then the game day plaza. This was a really unique space that kind of naturally happened as we moved some of those ball fields down. This space becomes a true pedestrian corridor at the entrance of your park, the focal point of your park. You can use it for registration areas, you can use it for check-in, hosting events, but it's a space in between that pedestrians can feel safe and you can program in various different ways. And then the support structures. There's a lot of restroom concessions out there right now. So how do we bring those all together in one family? We've continued to program the restroom concession down in the core of the softball complex. And then we have a restroom in the ball field fourplex. But you'll notice we kicked the restroom concession out to the west of the fourplex up there and added one down in the game day plaza. And what that allows you to do is when those fields are locked and not being used, you can still open that restroom concession and use it for your community events. So it's a multi-use destination. It's not just servicing the sports fields. And then identity. Two critical entrances. You've got one when you come into the park, and then you've got one kind of at that your main vehicular spot that you can do monument signs, you can do wayfinding maps, different things that will happen throughout the park. Again, we're not necessarily implementing where these are going. We're just painting the picture about these are the things that this park needs moving forward. And then similar story on the south. Looking at circulation, so what you'll notice here, first thing, if you've ever been out there, you'll know the parking lot. There's two linear drives that come in, and they don't tie together, so it makes entry and exit very difficult when you have tournaments. So we've repositioned the parking lot so you can do a loop system, come in and out freely, so that'll decongest some of that parking access as you're using the fields. And then your pedestrian connectivity, having a strong linear pedestrian corridor east to west, that helps with maintenance as well. They don't have to cross any vehicular parking spaces. They can just mow consistently straight across. They can run to the nature preserve if they need to. It's just an easy back and forth without getting in the way of cars. Field sports, key here, we aren't losing any fields. If anything, we're gaining. So the efficiency of reorienting the parking lot towards Corinth Parkway, we're able to open up that green space, consolidate some of the fields, and add more. So that, what that does is it comes with some lighting improvements, maybe you have to move a few, reposition where those go, but it opens up the space to program more efficiently. And then your support structures, bringing a signature restaurant concession building right at the entry allows for a gateway. People park, they walk through the restaurant concession building, maybe a breezeway, and then you're open to the park. You have a various shade structures through there. That was something that we heard from the soccer group, that they wanted more shade. So figuring out ways to implement those for fields, but also giving the ability to reorient those fields as maybe the user groups change. You want those fields to be able to play independently and not be locked into one spot. And then what are the destinations here? So we've deemed that center spine as a community green. You can see this picture here kind of paints what that could look like, where you have your signature restaurant concession building. You walk through the breezeway, maybe have a smaller playground for the young kids there that are waiting on brother and sister to finish their game. And you've got a pavilion down at the bottom. Pulling the sports courts over, you've got a basketball court on the north side. We've kind of consolidated the sports courts down on the south. We felt like that played better with soccer. It's more open. You have a perfect space. Right now you've got a football field over there that you can add a few pickleball courts, move that basketball court to, and you have a nice sports court zone that's not competing with the other user groups. And then the active nature zone, which we all know is the Dorba Trails. And then same thing, bringing in the identity, whatever is on the north side with the architectural components, stone, you can match similar what's happening down the street at Agora, bringing in some of the stone, bringing in the wayfinding interpretive signs throughout the park, just to let users know where they're at. So overall, that was kind of a quick run through the final master plan, but what this is going to allow y'all to do is strategic phasing, so you can look at how do these pieces begin to come together. Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years, 15 years? How far do we break this puzzle down? We're coordinating the infrastructure, so looking at where those big components are with the restaurant concession buildings, restroom, monument signs, making sure the theming is there, and then ultimately going from this, you can use it for partnership opportunities and begin to discuss funding. So I want to open up lastly with a few neat images that our group has put together. So this view here is of you're kind of hovering, if you can imagine, over the softball fields, and you're looking down the pedestrian corridor to the fourplex baseball fields is up there. You've got your nature zone on the top side of the screen there, and you've got the two fields right there in the middle. So holistically, just painting the picture of what something could look like. Your parking lot is existing there in the middle. We're extending it, whether you just re-asphalt it or tear it up and put new concrete. The location of the heart of the park is still intact. Your softball fields are still intact. Now it's what level of finish do we do? Do we tear down the ball fields and put black chain link vinyl coated fence up? Do you keep it just galvanized fencing? That's where you start to get into what level of finish does this park go to. And then on the south side, this is looking at that community green through the gateway structure down the playground with the fields all in the background. So with that, love being able to be here with you and Philip here presenting this, but love to hear some questions that y'all may have.
I have some. How many parking spaces will be on each side?
So the total parking spaces, we haven't lost any, if that's what we're getting. If anything, we've gained. I think on the north side, we're plus or minus 150 to 200. I'd have to go back and look at the count. I don't think I have it on here. And then the south side, we are well over what the current parking is. So we have more parking.
No, we don't know what it is now.
I can get you those counts. Let me see if I have it on here actually. If it's not in here, we'll get Caroline those.
And then where the parking is up to my right by the pond. Is there going to be connectivity for people that park there to get to the soccer fields? Is there going to be a walkway or connectivity there?
Right here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so right now this is the sports court zone that we talked about. We do have an enhancement just more efficiency and spaces, adding some to that, the Dorba Trail area. But we do have walk that kind of comes and connects over to the sports courts.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I just have more of a comment, because I had the privilege of taking part in that original focus group, right, with Linda and, you know, the folks here. Man, y'all have done a great job. That was a crazy group. Because you've got multiple soccer leagues, you've got baseball, and don't forget the girls with the softball, and every one of them was just so passionately advocating for the needs of their kids and their program. And so to put something together that doesn't end up with torches and pitchforks, I applaud you, because I think you really did a fantastic job of addressing all those needs and all those questions that came up in the early stages.
Appreciate that.
Are y'all doing anything, or is there a plan to do anything with the dog park at all?
The dog park will remain as is, as part of this plan. It's just labeled as existing. I think it works well. I mean, we walked it, it's in really good shape. The main thing we heard about the dog park was there still easy access from the parking to the dog park, which we do have a straight walk that connects right down the side there, to not impede with anything that's going on in the park.
Yeah, I actually use the dog park sometimes, and some of the regulars have said stuff about there just not being enough shade, and it's not lit. So when it starts getting dark earlier, there's no lighting for people to be able to see around the dog park when they bring their dogs there after work. So just a little bit of feedback that I've heard from the community. But this is beautiful.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good job.
Appreciate it.
Great.
All right, item number 2, we're going to conduct a workshop to discuss the city's garage sale ordinance and regulation. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. From park master plans to garage sales, we covered a lot of things.
Or somehow.
So we're always on the lookout for, obviously, ordinances that get to a point where they're pretty antiquated and they're old, and but this is one we've talked about internally a little bit. Not necessarily a super pressing thing, but tonight Melissa's going to kind of walk through some of the things her staff has found. That's alcohol. We'll talk about that after garage sales.
It's always good to finish up all after groups.
Do we sample?
It's about selling alcohol at a garage sale.
So this will be short. This is
Go ahead.
This is one slide. Basically, we just have a little bit of cleanup we want to do. This is an ordinance from 1991, so it's a little old. And so there's one item in particular that keeps coming up as we do garage sale permits, by the way. There's no fee for it. It's a pretty quick process. But there's a couple of things that have come up. One is the signage. This ordinance being the age that it is, I guess back then, 7 signs in the right-of-way were allowed. That's actually, first of all, it's a lot, but secondly, it conflicts actually with state law, because we don't allow signs in the right-of-way that advertise. I mean, we pick up bandit signs all the time, every day. So that otherwise you have hundreds of signs in the right-of-way advertising everything. So you can't really discriminate based on content. So we can't allow garage signs and not allow the I'll mow your yard signs or whatever. And so that is something we need to eliminate. The question then comes in on the signage. We did look at all the cities around us and what they allow. It kind of runs the gamut, but most cities only allow signage on the lot where the garage sale is happening. A few do allow other signs on private property. So like if your neighbor lets you they live on the corner and your neighbor lets you stick a sign on the corner or whatever, you can do that. So we could look at a hybrid. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, where you could put, for example, 1 or 2 signs on your own property, and then perhaps 2 to 3 signs on private property, with obviously the permission of the private property owner, but none in the right of way. And then secondly, I want to talk about the number of garage sales per year. We allow 3. Most everybody that does garage sales are great, and they do garage sales for the right reason. We do have a small group that, it's sort of their business, and that's what you're trying to avoid, is basically having a business in a residential community. And so that's why you limit the number of garage sales. We did do research looking at what other cities do. Hickory Creek, Lake Dallas, Louisville, and Highland Village, for example, allow 2 garage sales, so it's definitely the most common. 2 garage sales per year. Denton allows 3 garage sales a year. So really just kind of wanted to throw that out before we come to you with some revisions on that ordinance and get your thoughts.
How many days can you run a garage sale with a permit?
72 hours.
Okay.
And is it limited to between the hours of?
No. I guess you could do it 20 hours a day, but nobody.
Well, I mean,
It's
no,
a
I
good
mean,
question.
I'd be pretty
No,
salty
it's
if
a
my,
good
if my
question.
neighbor started a garage sale
There's
at
nothing
4 or
in
5 in the morning, right? Or ran it until 11 o'clock at
Yeah,
night.
it hasn't come up, but yeah, there's nothing in the code that speaks to timing, but we could add that.
You know how many people are doing it 3 times a year? That seems
My
like
neighbor.
a lot.
I'm trying to imagine someone showing up at a garage sale at 4 in the morning.
Probably 99% of people fall within that 1 to 2 a year that do garage sales.
Okay.
And then you have 2 or 3 that want to do 12. And it's this constant, no, you can't do another one, no, you can't do another one, so.
We're wanting to just reduce it down to 2 and then we can't let them do the signs on. That's what
The
this is.
signage, we definitely need to not allow signs in the right of way. So the question then is, what do you want to allow? Like I said, the most common ordinances we found allow for signs only on the property, but there are several cities that do allow signage in other private property, obviously with their permission. So you might look at something that's 2 to 3 additional signs that you can have on other private property, obviously with their permission. So that's what I would recommend as kind of a middle ground.
So
I
how
think
do
that's
we,
good.
how do we treat like community garage sales versus individual homeowner garage, right? So like you're saying, okay, so 2 signs, but if I've got my neighborhood's doing it and we got 10 houses, does that mean we get multiple? We can have 20 signs now, or, right? So are there different rules for when it's community-wide versus an
Well,
individual?
I think it's still, we could, and that actually came up right before this meeting. I was like, oh, I didn't really counter that in, but, that's something we could address specifically in the ordinance. It's a really good point. I think signage still needs to be on private property, and perhaps for a community garage sale, we could add to the number if it's for community-wide. I think in 1991, that wasn't a thing really, but now it's actually, I think, a really positive thing to have neighborhood-wide garage sales. So we can definitely look at that, come back with a proposal, but if you have any suggestions for, sort of an increase in the number of signs which makes sense for a neighborhood-wide garage sale.
I think at one point, the city was requiring a special use permit for some of those bigger communities that had, like, I think Fairview East used to have a huge one.
Yeah.
There were cars everywhere. And, it was extremely popular. So the city then started requiring communities to do special use permits. Now, I don't know if they still require that or not.
We don't require that.
Okay. Because it was like $75 or something.
Yeah, we don't charge a fee, and it's the same process as the other ones. It's
Okay.
actually just a super simple form. It's like,
Yeah.
name, address, and it's automatically generated.
Okay.
So if it's a community sale, every individual homeowner that's participating would be required then to get their own permit?
No, it just. one
Community
permit.
does.
In my experience in another city, we had one in an HOA every year. It was a big, it was great. It was a really cool event, to be honest. But we changed the ordinance because of that, because technically they each should have gotten it. And we're just trying to work with them, and they were only doing it once a year. And so they basically, HOA would get 1 permit. Now, I can't remember what we did on the
It's a common
signage.
sense factor, and that's what we try to, it's not addressed in the ordinance, common sense, we just do one permit.
If it's not in the letter, we can't trust people to follow the spirit.
Could we do something where it's like if it's a single house garage sale, they can have 3 signs, but if it's a multi-property, there can be 2 signs per property involved, or is that too complicated?
Yeah, we can have specific language to neighborhood-wide garage sales.
That would be cool.
I'll add that into the mix, but.
Would it use too much bandwidth too, since we're reducing the amount of signs that can be put out? Really, 'cause if it has to be on private property, that we could, if they get a permit, there's like a spot on the website where no, we can't do that.
We have that.
We do.
Yeah, you can go online and look at the map. and see what garage sales are going on. It automatically populates.
We should do a website tour.
That's a great idea.
Like a website tour, you know, like once in a while where we show people what all is on the website.
Yeah, we have an interactive map that is
cool.
updated as soon as you apply and there's a box that you check, you want to be on the map, and if you do, then it goes on the map.
We are so cool.
What
I just
happens,
didn't know it.
I didn't know how cool we were.
what happens if somebody has a garage sale and doesn't get a permit, and who, yeah, what's the
So I'll answer your question real quick, but typically, we can't have feedback and response in workshop sessions.
Okay.
But my guess is, and I'll ask you to be sure, it's probably mostly complaint driven. My guess is we don't have staff driving around to make sure that what you're doing is permitted. But as he said, if your neighbor is like, what is this person doing? They call into the city, they check to see if there's a permit. If there's no permit, that gives staff the opportunity to go and intervene. So my guess is that's exactly why we have the permitting process. If things get out of hand, if there's complaints.
It's really so that if you have somebody that has, and we do have a couple of ladies that want to have 15 garage sales a year, and you can, look at that and say, and
Sure.
obviously try to educate first.
Is to be kind to our neighbors.
That's wild though. I don't even want to have one.
But I know
Headache.
people who are in it as
Well, it becomes a
businesses.
business, and that's what.
I think 2 would be reasonable. That's what other cities are doing.
Yeah, I think so as well.
So Ed, so you are clear in what you'll bring back to us? Does anybody else, council, have any questions or suggestions or potential changes?
Thank you.
I do want to thank you. I'm the one for my community that signs up for our community garage sale. And when I first tried it, it was quite confusing.
You're the reason we have a simple form.
Get city manager involved, and he's like, hold on a second, something's wrong with this, and now it is much better, and I really appreciate the effort you guys have put into it.
Scott contacted me, I went and tried to do it. I was like, oh my God. Yes,
And you couldn't find it.
I couldn't.
No, I found it.
I could not.
I couldn't figure out where to, like, what?
You had
Okay,
to go into our software, permitting software, and
yes,
create an account. It was,
Yeah.
okay. So if we have nothing else, we're gonna move on to agenda item number 3, conduct a workshop and to discuss the city's alcohol sales ordinance and recent and potential future alcohol permit requests related to retail development in the city. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We put this on the agenda tonight. Over the last year, we've received more and more questions about what is currently allowed in Corinth. We're getting that from businesses that are looking to locate here. I've had some council inquiries about what is currently on the books and what permits are available to those businesses that might come here. From an economic development standpoint, that is a question we're getting more and more. So we thought it would be beneficial just to walk through with everybody what is on the books today in terms of alcohol permits available to a potential retail business. If there was a desire to change that, how does that process work? And that is a grassroots effort. That's not something the council would initiate. It involves a local option election with a petition. And so we thought we'd just kind of walk through that tonight because we have received some of those questions. The TABC rules, if you want to have a lot of fun, can get very complicated. So I'm glad Melissa's doing this presentation.
I learned all about alcohol. So, just to kind of walk through this, some definitions, there's a food beverage permit that TABC requires if you're gonna be serving food. Alcohol is issued by the state, and we require it to sell alcohol on site for restaurants. Mixed beverage, when we refer to that, that means any alcoholic drink, so liquor, beer, wine. And then you have on-site, this is very important, on-site consumption and off-site consumption. Obviously that's sort of prepackaged versus having alcohol on site. And then cities are wet, dry, or partially wet. We are partially wet, which is actually the most common in this area. I cannot see that. I'm sorry, I'm just in for you. And so the ones with the little stars are ones that the city of Corinth allows currently. So these are the different kinds of permits. It's not a one-size-fit-all. There's all different on-site, off-site, and then what kind of beverages that you're talking about, or what kind of facility. So you have a mixed beverage permit. That's basically a restaurant, so it requires food sales. And that gets into some specifics. Literally, you have to have at least 8 entrees and stuff like that. So it's very specific from a TABC standpoint. It has to be an actual restaurant. And then you have wine and malt. Malt is beer. Wine and malt beverage. Retail permit, so that's on and off premise consumption. We do not allow that. Package store, that's a liquor store. We don't allow that here in Corinth. Wine-only package store, so that's off-premise, but only sells wine. You have a retail dealer on-premise license, so that's beer only on-premise, so like a pub. And then you have a brew pub license that allows for the brewing on site, like a brewery. We don't allow that here. And then you have a retail dealer's off-premise license, so to sell beer for, so like a convenience store kind of thing. And then wine and beer beverage, allowing the sale of both beer and wine for off-premise sales. So that is allowed here. So just a little overview of of the history of our ordinances. We have 2 ordinances that were passed here. A local option election held in 2022 on the legal sale of beer and wine off-premise. And that issue was passed. So Corinth was dry before that and became wet when that happened. And then in 2004, and then 2 years later, there was an election for the legal sale of mixed beverages in restaurants. And so that issue passed, and Corinth was, well, more wet. More wet. The sale of off-premise.
Slightly more wet.
Beer and wine, and then added the on-premise, so that's the restaurant component. So, and then, I forgot what this was. Regulations related to restaurants with alcohol sales. As you probably know, they have to have more than 50%, so 50% plus 1 of food sales over alcohol sales in order to qualify. So, and then if sales reach more than 50%, it's considered to be a bar, and that's not allowed in Corinth. Additional codes, and I won't go through all these, but it has to do with the time of sales. This is actually in our own codes. And then it has to be in a property zone for non-residential use. It has to comply, of course, with TABC rules. No consumption of alcohol in the parks unless it's approved. And then the distance restrictions. So TABC has distance restrictions in the code, but the city has to adopt them in order to, and for them to be legal here. The council has not adopted those distance requirements. These are the distance requirements for 300 feet from churches, public, private schools, and so forth, 1,000 feet from public schools. So the city never did adopt those. That could be something that the city wants to, that you might want to look at.
Y'all may recall that came up over off of, just south of the high school off 2181. A restaurant called us, and frankly, we just assumed those had been adopted, and we went back and checked, and turned out they had not. The school actually called us to ask, can they locate it that close? And so if someone were to move forward with a petition at some point, I would recommend you at least revisit that and see if you want to think about doing that, adopting those state guidelines.
Can we're gonna retouch base on this eventually, right?
I would think so.
Okay, so when we do, if you guys can give us an idea, if there are any establishments in Corinth that would be subject to this if we were to pass it?
I think that might be the only one that we're aware of, that it's Falcon Town Center. And they don't have tenants yet, so we don't know how that's going to play out. They asked us that question because they were looking at a Torchy's for that location, which does sell beer and wine. But, so just some hypothetical, like, these are almost all hypothetical. They're not real. So Andy's is a bar that wants to open a location in Corinth. It doesn't serve food and alcohol that exceeds 50%, so they could not operate here in Corinth. And then well as wine wants to open a location in Corinth that does not serve food and alcohol, but they want off-site consumption or to sell for off-site consumption of wine. And yes, they can locate in Corinth for prepackaged wine. This is actually a real example. Temple Tandoor is a restaurant,
I'm sorry, the previous one, wine only.
wine only.
No alcohol
No,
associated.
sorry, good point.
Well, I just wanna make sure
They-
that doesn't
They
get
can't sell
mixed.
liquor, so wine only, or beer only, but they can't sell.
There's
liquor.
places out there, y'all have heard Total Wine, things like that, but they do sell alcohol, so they could not open.
Yes, I didn't know that at the time, because I don't go to.
I was
Total-
told they have
I don't
alcohol.
go to Total Wine. So I'm not the best person for this. The Temple Tandoor, of course, is a restaurant. They actually have a bar inside, but their food sales do exceed the 50%, so of course they're allowed to be there. A brewery, however, is not an allowed use because they don't have, well, this particular example, they don't have food that exceeds the 50% requirement.
Can I ask a question on the 50%? Is that over what period? Like if it's Super Bowl Sunday, right, and they sell more beer than they do food that day, does that make them in violation, or is it
That's a good.
cumulative over a month or whatever, and is somebody gonna go audit their receipts?
I don't, it's not a daily thing.
A monthly or quarterly. I mean, there's reporting that you have to do with
CABC.
CABC.
City doesn't police that.
No, we don't do that.
Curious.
They actually have to provide that information to TABC. My guess is it's something like a quarterly reporting. It's not a daily thing.
My experience, if someone complained about that, city I was in before, we would just say, you need to call the state. And then I did have occasion where there was one place that just kept violating, and they were doing way more alcohol. And they shut them down eventually.
So the kicker with the brewery is that they have on-site consumption, so that's why that would not be allowed here in Corinth. That actually is something we were talking about for maybe one of the distribution center buildings, because they had the ceiling height to have a brewery, but it would not be allowed today. And then, of course, a package store, this one's called Fourth Octane, the liquor store is not allowed to open in Corinth. Important to note as we go through these different categories, if there was a grassroots effort, as Scott mentioned, to do, to put this on a ballot for a change, it's not an all or nothing. So go through the different categories because you can add this category or that category, just like happened in 2002 to 2004. So if you wanted on-site consumption of beer and wine, like a wine bar or a brewery, those categories could be added, and you didn't want, I'm just throwing out examples, and you didn't want liquor stores, you wouldn't have to have that on the ballot.
But you could do like there's one that you could have a whiskey bar, but not like a package store, or no. Once you do liquor, you don't have to do, it doesn't also include like off-site consumption. It can be on-site
There's a
consumption.
category for on and off.
You're right.
Right.
So it doesn't mean a liquor store is gonna come if this
Right,
is
right.
passed. That's
Correct.
a
Liquor
You
store-
get it
separate.
pretty specific.
It's its
You
own-
got it.
Yeah, it sort of stands by itself.
Okay.
That's a good question.
And those are the
And here's
questions that
the-
come up. When you get petitioned, the city's role in that would really just be education.
So that is how it gets on a ballot, is a
Yeah.
petition.
It gets on a ballot like this. So, for example, if you did or didn't want liquor stores, this would be your category, and it's specifically for that.
Got it.
The package store permit P, so it's specific. So that's where this comes in, if you wanted to add or whatever, a category or remove a category from what's allowed, it would go on a ballot. These are the kind of categories you'd be looking at. And so that's why I was putting, okay, this is what we allow.
So the
This is
BG
what
would
we
be
allow.
like for a wine bar. The BG at the top in the middle, is
Wine
that-
love it.
is that like wine
Yes.
bar, whiskey bar?
Yes, for on and off.
Oh, but that's not for whiskey, that would just be beer and wine, right?
Correct.
Okay,
That's for
then you'd have to
wine.
adopt a different one for alcohol,
That's
like liquor.
where it went.
And then a separate one for a brewery.
There, it's the one in the top left. You can have, wait, I'm sorry.
The top left,
I
don't
can
you,
barely read it.
you have to have,
So the most likely scenario, though, is probably the brew pub, right? So like, the scenario would be like the EDC gets engaged with the developer and they say, man, we would love to put a brew pub in where that gymnastics place is because it's got big high ceilings. But the process for that would have to be then somebody publicizing, hey, these folks want to come into town, and then it would have to go on the ballot. So it's a process and it's going to be relatively lengthy.
Oh, yeah, the businesses,
Errol.
I spoke with a business that does, that is kind of like a Total Wine sort of thing, and they sell everything. Couldn't do that here. They actually have a team that goes into cities and they handle the entire process, the petition, they have a group assigned to that. Like I said, the city's role is basically just to do, what I've seen, we went through this in Roanoke, my last couple of years there, where we added the mixed beverage permit, because the restaurants had to stick to the 50-50 that she just talked about. Well, we had some that were coming in that thought, well, we may do 65% alcohol because we have this music venue and we have the, and so our role was basically just education. What does this mean? Does it mean liquor stores are allowed to meet? No. Does it mean, what are our zoning capabilities? Can we prohibit proximity to schools and daycares? Yes, we can adopt those ordinances. And so it's purely educational for us. We just can't advocate for the measure.
So, requirements, again, as Scott mentioned, this is a grassroots effort that would need to happen to put it on a ballot if you wanted to change. So there'd be an application for a petition that would be submitted to the state with at least 10 registered signatures. That would allow the petition process to begin. The person filing the petition must put a notice in the newspaper, include all the information on, is going to essentially be on the petition. And then the signatures needed are, it's going to fall under this one, is 35% of the registered voters in the political subdivision who voted for the governor in the most recent gubernatorial election. And that was in 2022. Amazingly, 9,073 people voted. And so 3,176 signatures needed. So a lot of people came out to vote.
The biggest one ever.
Yeah, that's, the highest
For
number.
something local, yeah.
I think that's kind of it. So, yeah.
Oh, I think that's great.
That is a huge hill to climb.
It's a lot of signatures.
A lot.
I love alcohol.
Well, let's have another one.
I know, I'm an addiction
Inventory.
counselor.
Yeah.
It could go up. It could go up.
Meanwhile, you got Lake Dallas publicizing why we need to stay dry, right? Because all the bordering towns are going to push against it because they want to keep their tax revenue.
We have had a couple folks reach out and suggest they might want to move forward with the petition. That's another reason we want this on here. And again, that's on them. We don't get involved in that. Other than if we got the petition, Lana would have to reach out and get the signatures verified that they're registered voters and all that.
Okay.
We're getting those questions as more and more retail comes on, especially in this area. We're getting those questions about, can we have a wine bar? Can we have a, brewery and those kinds of things? And those are things we can't have.
Okay. So the takeaway for us is that if we see such information out in the market and somebody is trying to gain signatures for one of these measures, the city had nothing to do with that. That is a private person trying to gain signatures to change the laws in the city of Corinth to apply for a TABC permit. Good. Okay. All right. Item number 4 is discuss regular session agenda items. My guess is since it is totally a consent agenda from the dais, we can remove an item and discuss it at that point. I think we do have what could be a fairly lengthy executive session this evening, right, Mr. Campbell? But we also don't have a public hearing. So if we gave ourselves 10 minutes for restroom breaks and to resituate, we'll go out there, we'll handle a consent agenda, and then we'll move on in here for executive session. Is that true? So it is 6:33 p.m. The workshop is adjourned.